Gladys, boss, speak in the manner they spoke, you should take notice. Because it reminds me of, I think, in 1989, when a similar narrative started here by the late Honorable Mwenje against the then Vice President Josephat Njuguna Karanja. We all know what happened in the end. But on a more serious note, this house can choose to transact its business in the manner it deems fit. It is not for anybody else to direct it how to go about transacting its business, including the business of inviting people to this house. Under Article 95, I think, sub-Article 2, this house has got the mandate to deal with issues concerning the people, issues of concern to the country. And there is no greater issue that is of concern to the country than the plight of sportsmen and women. And therefore, this house is in order to raise those queries that it raised in the manner it did. And therefore, I would want to ask you, Mr. Speaker, that even before we go to the issues, the substantive questions, the matter of this letter needs to be addressed. Yes, by way of you making a pronouncement, where this is the way we shall be proceeding in this house. You know, as a coalition, have got issues with ministers coming here. I'm sure you know that, Honorable Speaker. But even as they come, we must set the record straight on how they are going to engage with this house and how they are going to treat issues that emanate from this house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, anything that is pronounced on the floor of this house does not really belong to the person making the pronouncement. It is the house. And if the leader of majority or the leader of minority or any other member raises an issue on the floor of this house, it ceases being their issue. It ceases being their personal issue. It becomes an issue of the house and for the house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Now, Honorable, 1 minute only, Kajwang, then I give direction.
Mr. Speaker, when matters such as this arise, probably it is good enough that a few members who have been around may also share their sentiments. Mr. Speaker, with all that the majority leader and the minority leader has said, I want to take a different tangent. I think that there is a disorder in the house. Right now, there is disorder in the house. And until that disorder has been solved, the house is unable to conduct further business. I'm talking about the sanctity, the dignity, the respectability of this house. To find, when we changed the standing orders, to allow cabinet secretaries and other people that could be invited to this house to deal with us in terms of statements, we did not give them the privilege to walk into this house. They must know they are strangers. Right now, they are strangers. And at best, they can only be witnesses, whom we summon from time to time in our own wisdom, and only to participate and say the things that we want them to say here. For a witness, even before appearing before us, to give us a lengthy lecture about hearsays and say that what we are doing here, we are purporting to do the things that we are doing here. We are purporting. And to allow this witness to write to the speaker, where is even the protocol of writing to the speakers of the houses? Once we have issued the summons, and the Constitution allows us that we can summon anybody, whether in plenary or in committee, to come before us. Now, how is it that a witness decides, therefore, with, raises upon a stool and decides to address the presiding officer of this house and lectures him accordingly. And visions and the culture that we should adopt when we deal with these matters.
You made your point.
No. The last point I want to make, Mr. Speaker, sir. The last point I want to make, Mr. Speaker, since we changed the standing orders, if we allow this unaddressed, then the executive or anybody else under whom we supervise will have the latitude, because there is something called precedence. I know the witness wants us to talk about the traditions. He also knows about something called precedence. If we allow him to go with this unattended, then of course we have lost our value in holding these people to account. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that there is a disorder in the House, and until this disorder has been dealt with by getting this insubordinate witness, very insubordinate witness, well, not hostile. Hostile will give me problems, but insubordinate to this House. That must be taken out before we can go. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, order. Indeed, I found, as your speaker, the content of the letter read by the majority leader strange. And this goes, majority leader, inform all cabinet ministers that they come to answer questions guided by you as the majority leader, who is the nexus between this House and the executive, and writing to Mr. Speaker after he has given direction is inadvisable. So going to the future, you may need to communicate to all cabinet secretaries on how to engage the House. And more particularly, once the chair has given direction on the matter, no minister has any right to give value judgment on that direction. Because what the content of that letter is giving value judgment on the direction of the chair is out of order. And to cut a long story short, Minister, you will be required to rescind in totality the content of that letter, tender an apology to the House, then we move on with answering the questions that are before us. Go ahead, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this very august House. Let me, Mr. Speaker, from the outset, make it absolutely succinctly and unambiguously clear that I subject myself to the authority and oversight of this House in totality. That should not be in doubt whatsoever, Honorable Speaker. Let me also make it clear that the correspondence that has been referenced here was authored and conveyed in good faith, and I would apologize unreservedly if in any way that letter has created...
Don't give a conditional apology, Minister. Just cut a long story short. An apology should be unequivocal and clear.
Mr. Speaker.
Cut the long story short. Rescind the contents thereof. Apologize to the House. We do business. There are a lot of bills pending after this.
Mr. Speaker, may I therefore, with a lot of respect, withdraw that correspondence and unreservedly tender an apology to the Honorable House.
Thank you.
May I proceed, sir?
Let the majority leader read out the questions, and then you can proceed to answer. And in your questions, members, those chips on the correspondence will lie where they fell. I will not allow any one of you to go back to it. Deal with the questions on how our athletes are being dealt with, how they are being managed, and how the issues came to this House.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Well guided, and I will proceed to read out the questions as they are listed on the order paper. One is for the ministers to respond to the following issues relating to the role of the ministry in facilitating the Kenya team that attended the Special Olympics held in Berlin, Germany in June 2023 on the following issues. One, how and why the Kenya's team to the Special Olympic Games jetted out of the country without neither the Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Sports and the Arts nor a representative from the ministry flagging them off. B, how and why the Cabinet Secretary did not deem it reasonable to receive and celebrate the team for their monumental performance during their arrival into the country from the Games. And C, what measures is the ministry putting in place to ensure the anomaly of ill-treating athletes doesn't recur again? 2, Honorable Speaker, on management of aquatic sports in the country. A, explain why Kenya Aquatics has historically been unable to comply with the rules and decisions of World Aquatics, including holding of elections even after a stabilization committee was established in June 2022, on the 28th of June 2022 to be precise. B, enumerate efforts that the ministry has put in place to ensure that Kenya Aquatics Stabilization Committee conducts elections and state when the elections will be conducted so that the World Aquatics can lift the suspension of Kenya Aquatics since 2022 from participating in any activities within the World Aquatics. C, give an undertaking that the ministry will facilitate Kenyan swimmers to participate in the World Aquatics event scheduled for February 2024 in Doha, Qatar, and in the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, France. D, lastly, state how the ministry plans to address discrimination, unfairness, and opaqueness in the selection criteria of swimmers participating in various local, regional, continental, and international swimming competitions. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
For better management of the questions, Minister, answer question Roman 1 on the paraplegic Olympics. Then we can come to aquatic later, so that we can take supplementaries on the first question.